Hello friends, the tech demo for the Show 22 just came out today, so I thought we'd take a look at how it plays on both the Switch and the Series X, especially since it will be the first legitimate baseball game with an MLB license to come out for a Nintendo console since MVP Baseball 2005 for the GameCube. The MLB 2K series on the Wii was pretty much garbage, so those games do not count in my book. The Show series in general is kind of the one mass market game that I do play on a consistent basis. So it doesn't really fit in with the theme of this channel much, but considering it is the first time we are seeing it on the Switch, I think it is obscure enough to talk about here. Anyways, the whole point of this demo is so the developers can test crossplay on their servers, as well as the new co-op feature and other performance tests. Keep in mind these are just my first impressions of the tech demo, so the full game could behave very differently when it releases in April. I'll break these impressions down into 3 sections, which you see on the screen here: pitching and hitting gameplay, visuals and technical performance, and then a side-by-side gameplay feed between the Xbox Series X and the Switch versions. Alright, so the tech demo itself consists of a quick play co-op mode and a limited access Diamond Dynasty mode, which is where most players will spend their time. Because of this, we can't obviously dive too much into the game modes and features, but we will get a feel for how it plays, which when it's all said and done is the most important aspect of a simulation baseball game. In this demo, I played a game versus the computer and a random online opponent on both consoles, practice mode on both as well, and then a co-op game on the Xbox. So let's start with the Switch version, which piqued my curiosity the most. We knew the game would not look amazing, and I'll talk about that later, but my biggest concern going into this tech demo would be how it felt. I've sunk hundreds of hours of my time into previous games, so I do consider myself a decent resource on this. Pitching on both the Switch version of the game felt pretty much like the Xbox version, except for the slightest but noticeable input lag. I like to use meter pitching, but the pinpoint pitching felt pretty much the same as well. Maybe this is something I'll get used to, but it certainly feels a little bit slower than the Series X, but it is playable. Regardless, in order for the game to hold up, it has to feel super responsive, as baseball requires a lot of quick twitch movements, at least the video game version does, and it did end up feeling playable once I got used to it, but on the other hand, hitting felt majorly different. I'll start with the positives with hitting, and I will say moving my PCI indicator around felt pretty much the same as what I've always been used to, so that was good. Side note, there is a new feature with hitting that allows you to anchor your PCI in different hitting quadrants, which I already found myself using to help prevent the common issue a lot of people have of yanking their PCI indicator downwards and swinging under a lot of pitches. But the big noticeable thing here are the visual cues that you need to worry about with reading the movement of a tiny baseball on screen, and that was especially difficult on the Switch version. I'm not sure if this is just a frame rate thing, but pitches just seem to sneak up on me with incredible speed, especially at times facing Nolan Ryan throwing 102 miles per hour, but it felt like I resulted in more flailing around at the plate because it was just so hard to read the pitch. It did feel the same online versus offline, so that was interesting. My initial reaction is the game would be playable on lower difficulty settings, but once you ramp up to the competitive levels, playing on the Switch might be out of the question. But again, this is just the tech demo, so a big TBD on that. So why has the Show not come to the Switch before? Well, the console is technically underpowered, so there are a lot of visual hoops the developers had to jump through, and it's apparent here. If you couldn't tell already, the game does not look great. I don't think it looks terrible per se, but it is a bit jarring coming from the Series X version to the Switch. This is most noticeable with some of the character models, stadiums, shadows, and lighting. The biggest thing though is just the jagged edges on basically everything in the game. The pitcher in particular when you're batting does look like a blurry pixelated mess. None of this is surprising, but unless you really favor portability over anything else, or only have a Switch, it is hard to recommend that version over another version for these reasons alone. In addition to the obvious visual differences, I was concerned with how the game would hold up online. Now, I did play on the Xbox with a wired gigabyte internet connection, and the Switch version was just over Wi-Fi, so keep that in mind. That being said, any sort of lag just ruins a baseball game, and the Switch version performed basically the same online and offline. It was more just how the game played in general in the core experience and how jagged it ran that made it not nearly as fun and difficult, especially when paired up against another opponent. We'll see how the full game performs upon release, as again, these are just tech demos, but I feel like it's a bit inconclusive when it comes to that. Moving over to the technical performance of the Series X version, it ran pretty much as smooth as butter. I played a couple co-op games and there wasn't a single technical issue at all, even playing crossplay with PlayStation users. So I think we are in for a treat for the full game, at least on the next-gen versions. So where does this leave us? Well, I'll leave you guys with a side-by-side video of both games so you can kind of judge for yourself, but my general takeaway is that the Switch version could very well be sufficient for non-competitive players, but I would like to see it look and feel less clunky with improved response times on the hitting side of the equation. Otherwise, I don't see myself using the cross progression features as much as I initially hoped. The Xbox version does look as strong as ever though, so I very much look forward to the full game release in April. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see everyone next time.